NCCR core is all about basic safety, right? So think of this class or this module. This is basically a really quick overview of module or of OSHA 10, right? So first chapter is basic safety. It's actually, I think it's basically a certification in and of itself in the NCCR program. Even if you don't complete all the rest of the stuff, you're going to get a certificate saying you completed basic safety, which is cool because again, people want you safety trained. This is a big deal to companies. They want to make sure you're working safe because it saves them money. They don't want you to get hurt because they just don't want you to get hurt. But then also you getting hurt causes them a lot of money. We're going to talk about, this is just the intro, just some real quick things, how to recognize some hazards and just what to call hazards. And so we're going to clarify the different types of accidents that happen on a work site real quick. So a near miss is an unplanned event or occurrence, something that could have really gone wrong, but it didn't. A near miss accident. When you watch my thing about fall protection, I talked about the scaffold story. That was a near miss. The scaffold fell over, the beam fell on top of him, and he could have got really hurt, but he was all right. Just minor bruise. That was a near miss. It could have been a lot worse. It could have damaged property. There could have been major injuries, or even worse. That would be a near miss. Property damage means you broke something. Say you're trying to install a window on the side of a building on a ladder and you dropped the window, you broke it, right? That's property damage. You broke something. Or you drove the forklift into the wall, you backed up, you didn't see something with the trailer. Who knows? But that's property damage. That's an accident or an incident. Minor injuries, this is bruises, minor cuts, hitting yourself with a hammer, cutting your hand on the edge of a board, something like that, a big splinter. You just have to stop momentarily, get out, figure out, put a Band-Aid on it. But you're working. You're not doing anything. It's not stopping the workflow from happening. You go right back to work. You don't have any time off. Serious injury is when you have to take days off of work. So this is broken arm, broken leg, things where you're going to have to take time and not work for a while. And so that means workman's comp is involved and all these different things because you can't work. And so now that's serious or disabling injury. And then the last one is fatality. This is the worst one, obviously. But this is an accident that causes someone's life. And so pay attention to the different levels. The minor ones, you want to prevent these, but in a way, part of a blue-collar job is you got to get toughed up a little bit. You're always going to get splinters. You're always going to get little minor bruises and things. Just because you hit your thumb with a hammer doesn't mean you're working unsafely. It just happened. I still have a bruised finger when we were on the roof here in the class. I hit my finger. Things like that happen. So this one, you want to try to prevent them as much as possible, but in a way, you can't prevent these things from happening. The other ones are all very preventable. The big fatal four for accidents that happen. If you hear OSHA, they like to talk about this, but these four things cause most of the accidents. These are others, but majority of them are all falls, or are all these four. So you got falls, that's falling off of anything, slipping on ice and falling, any time where you're just falling. Struck by is getting hit by something, and so this is something like a 2x4 falling off the roof and hitting you. So this is something hitting you. Or even a nail gun accident. That would be a struck by, right? Because it's the nail hitting you. Caught in between is when you're pinched between two things. Let's say you're working with cranes and you're standing between two metal beams and they pick one up and it slams you into the other and squishes you. That would be caught in because you're squeezed in between them. And then electrical means you're getting shocked, you're getting electrocuted. So that's another fairly common accident. But the majority of accidents for fatalities and just disabling is falls. People fall off of roofs, people get slip on ice, fall off equipment. There's all kinds of different hazards where you could fall. Make sure you pay attention to that section on how to prevent fall accidents from occurring. So, safety incidents, causes of incidents. All these different things. You want to pay attention to your signs, never avoid or never ignore the signs that are saying warning or high voltage or hearing protection required. These things are out there to protect you, so make sure you're following them. And so a big one is just unsafe conditions, which things that fall underneath that are housekeeping and a bunch of things. But unsafe conditions are just your work site is just not safe. There's holes in the ground that aren't covered. There's a bunch of stuff left around. It's really muddy. That could be it. sometimes it's just it's really congested. There's too many people on one site. There's not enough room to work around. And it's just because they overbooked everything because they're in a time crunch, but that makes it unsafe. You don't have room to work. Poor lighting could be that. It's just too dark and you don't see things. Too much clutter around. Maybe there's chemicals or gas. Anything having to do with where you are working is considered that unsafe condition. So a lot of these things fall underneath that. And so some of these are based on the condition, and some of these are your personal responsibility. If you show up drunk or high, that's on you. So you're the problem that's creating that unsafe condition. So HAZCOM is the hazard communication standard, and something you'll probably need to know in any career. Even if you go work at McDonald's, there's SDS sheets, right? There's all the chemicals used to clean and different things. You have to have the paperwork showing you what it is. So that's just how it's being communicated to you. Energy release is when, think of arcing electricity, a big shock, but there's different ways it can happen. And these are just things. A hydraulic pump could blow, pneumatic thing could blow, electrical, you get shocked. There's all kinds of different ways that we use energy on a job site. And so these are just things that could injure you. Incident reporting, don't hide it, don't lie about it. Do the right paperwork. That'll make it the easiest way, and it's going to protect you. The company might want you to lie about it so that they don't have to worry about paying the insurance, but then it's throwing you under the bus. They might fire you, but you could sue them, actually, if they fired you because of an accident, because that's against the rule. So do what's right. Do the right paperwork. Protect yourself. Don't let a company manipulate you in how you handle this stuff. Safety data sheets, we already talked to us about all your equipment. So trade terms. Combustible means it can catch on fire. Or it can catch on fire, not cause on fire. It can catch on fire. Competent person here. This is a big one for the test. And just OSHA stuff in general. Competent person, I'll read it, is a person who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings or working conditions that are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to employees, and has the authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate them. You've been OSHA trained. You are a competent person, meaning you should know better. So if you should know better, you should report anything that's unsafe. That's what a competent person is. Anyone who knows what is safe and unsafe. So that's you. Confined space means you're stuck in a small space, flammable, and easily ignite. So the difference between flammable and combustible is the flash point of flammable is below 100 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas combustible is the flash point is above 100 degrees. So combustible means it could burn, but it takes a lot more heat to make it happen. Flammable is very likely to catch on fire. It's easily. So there's this different level. We can skip through these things. PPE, if you hear that, is just personal protective equipment, your safety glasses, hard hats, all these kind of things. So I want to hit on this one, the safety culture. Safety culture is a company that sees the importance of safety. They don't hide from it, they embrace it, and they try to create and keep everyone safe. Because safety is a learned behavior and attitude. Safety doesn't just happen on its own. You have to make choices to do things safely. Because sometimes safety, the safe way isn't the easiest way, right? You can do something stupid and risk your life and get it done really quick, or you can do it the safe way. It might cost a little bit more money and make more time, but at the end of the day, you know you're going home. So a safety culture is created because it's a choice of the people, and it's a training and learned behavior, right? And so if a company has a good safety culture, things you'll notice are there are fewer at-risk behaviors, meaning the employees aren't doing stupid things, putting themselves at risk. There's lower incidents and accidents, so there's not very many accidents happening. And you can look at those numbers. When you apply for a company, you can say, what's your incident and accident rate? How many days has it been since your last injury? Less turnover because people feel safe is usually a better environment to work in, so people stay longer. They aren't leaving. Lots of times these companies, if you see they're hiring new people all the time, one of the things they're probably not very safe. Lower absenteeism, meaning people show up to work because they like working there, and then also they aren't injured. So they're there more often. So lower absenteeism and higher productivity. You get more done because people are safe, they aren't getting injured, and they're staying safe. So make sure you pay attention to the things that I went over, and then just the definition of risk for the test. You probably want to know this is Risk is the measurement of probability, consequences, and exposure related to an event. And then probability is the chance given to that event will occur. Consequences are the result of the action, condition, or event. Exposure is the amount of time and degree to which someone or something is exposed to an unsafe condition. Right, so it's kind of like a scale. It starts out, there is a risk. Something could potentially go wrong, right? That means that's the measure of what could possibly go wrong is your risk measurement. Probability then is you look at, okay, these are the risks that could happen. These are the potential bad things. And then you think, what is the probability of one of those things happening? And so you calculate, is this worth it? Because let's say there's a risk of something exploding, but I mean, it's never going to happen, so you don't have to worry about it. But potentially it could. But it's never going to happen, so you don't have to worry about it. Whereas working, you aren't going to use a welder next to a propane tank or on a propane tank with live fuel in it because it's going to explode, right? And so that probability is super high. So you're measuring what's going to happen. Consequences are what are the results from that. So here's the risk, here's what could happen, the probability of it, and then the consequence is the results of that action. So you chose to do it, and now this happened. What are the results? And then exposure is the amount of time that you have been exposed to that danger. How long have you been in that situation? So you take all those things into account when you're trying to figure out what should I do? What is the best option where I'm negating the most risk, making the probability for a clean or a safe and happy job site the best, what eliminates consequences, and what's going to keep the exposure rate for my guys down, or your crew. That's what you're looking at. So this is the end of section 1 of module 1.